So we document a lot of data throughout the growing season. So if we're out doing tillage work and we're documenting that, and application records and seeding and different harvest passes. So for a lot of years, we've documented all this data, but what do we really do with it? So Field Analyzer is a great tool to help understand and analyze these different map layers that we document all throughout the different year. So to get to Field Analyzer, we have a few different options. We can go to Analyze at the top and go to Field Analyzer. Otherwise, if we're on our map page and we're looking at a different field or a specific field, we can click on this field. So if we go to Levitt's Quarter and we click on it, right here at the bottom, we can go to Field Analyzer. So very similar look to what we just had in the map view, really just a kind of an extension from what we were at in map, but now we actually have the map layers and the different data information below it. So within Field Analyzer, some quick overview. One thing on the left side, if we wanted to hide our field list, just to give us a little more room, real estate to play with, we can hit this icon on the left side to hide that if we want a larger map and different areas to look at. So anytime we open Field Analyzer, it's either going to show our most recent pass, or if we looked at, say, 2021 seeding and I start going to other fields and there's that 2021 seeding there, that'll also populate there as that first one. But if we want to look or navigate to different map layers, we do that at the top left. Here's our 2024 growing season. If we scroll down, here's soybeans, here's any applications, and all of these are sorted by date. So our most recent will be towards the top. So we scroll down, here's 2023, 2022, and so on for all those previous years of information. So within this corn yield, I can hit the drop down, and here's all the different data layers that we've documented when we were actually running through the field during harvest. So things like average fuel rate by area, our moisture map, our ground speed map. If we had multiple machines within a field, we can use the equipment to understand where each one went and get some reporting based off of a machine by machine standpoint in this field. So we're gonna go back to our yield map. As we've been used to seeing on the right side, greens are good, red's the poorer zones. We can tell here with our pivot, we have the 2 dryland corners, which obviously didn't produce as well as our pivot did. Now on the left side, this is our legend. So this is what's dictating all of the colors on the map. Just a few things with this. If we click on one of these colors, it will show only those colors throughout the field. So 30% of our field is between 235 and 254 bushels per acre. And that's what we're looking at when we click on it. So we click it again and it'll hide. Now this progress bar, I'm gonna slide it down a little bit and I can go to edit on my legend. So if I wanted this to be 300 to, well, maybe say 150. Now, if we go to our distribute breakpoints, we want to distribute them evenly. So now we are at 30 bushel increments between all of those zones. If I wanted more zones, less zones, I can increase and decrease. And if I have a layer or a legend I really like, I can save that as a template. So if I wanted to save this as yield 150 to 300. So now I could save this legend. So if I go to my other fields and I want to populate the same legend, so if I printed everything off, everything across my spectrum would be the same legend on every map. Otherwise, it's going to generate to what makes the most sense based off of those rates or yield on that map. So this is how we would save it. I'm going to go ahead and just cancel out of this one, and we will save this one for this field at this point. Once it's changed, well, we lost a lot of green there. Maybe I actually do want to go back and I want this to be 275 and distribute evenly. So now we're on 25 bushel increments. And we do have a little bit more green in that map than from that standpoint. So really no right or wrong way to do it. Have as many colors as you want from that standpoint, but just understand how you can change that on the left side. All right, so as we move around here, if we go to our compare option, we can actually put 2 map layers side by side. So at the top left then, I have this first map layer on the left, and then now our second one that we want to look at. So if I want to go down to my corn seeding, and look at my target rate map or my as applied map, maybe it's multiple varieties. I could pull those up side by side so we can do some analysis of them in a side-by-side comparative manner. So if I wanted to zoom in, change anything I can. Also then if I look down at the bottom, if I drag this slider up, I can see the information across both of these. So when it was harvested, when it was planted, total acres on each, what our average productivity looked like, and all that information. But the one thing I really like about Field Analyzer, this tool specifically, is the data analysis aspect. So with data analysis, I can look at then my yield by planting rates based off of this map layer I've pulled up. So if I just zoom out again, if I look down here, so based off of where we planted 32,500 seeds per acre, that was on 69.5% of our acres, and that average yield was 254. Where we had the 30,000 spot on the top here, that was at also 254, but then our dryland average was 123. So I think about this as a variety analysis tool. So say these were multiple varieties. This field, it is just a single variety. So we don't get as much comparison in this one, but if we were split side by side, we would have a better idea of what yield was by variety. The other one too is we know this is irrigated in dryland. So if I wanted to do some selection using my tools on the right, and I wanted to grab my pivot selection tool, if I started in the middle and I only grabbed what's under my pivot, now I will only get the analysis by the selection. So if we had a split variety here, I'm only going to have the comparison based off of what was under the pivot in this scenario. So if I had multiple varieties, then I could see the yield by variety and only my irrigated. Because if I had a split right in the middle, if this whole field was split half and half, I'm pretty confident to say this left half would have a higher yield if I just looked at my variety totals, because it's in a higher percentage of the irrigated portion of the field. So can we always just look at an analysis or a report of how the yields did in each field or how the varieties did in each field? It's not always a true assessment if we have that irrigated dryland breakdown. So be aware of that, but this compare tool with the data analysis does create a lot of data layers and abilities to understand what's going on within that data. So these data layers, really anything that's documented we can pull in. So if it's elevation data, speed like planting speed, downforce with our Seedstar 4 and Seedstar 5 planters, those sort of metrics, as long as we can get them documented into here, we can do some data analysis like this. We get done with this, click on the X, and that will actually close out that selection. We can go to overlay then. So this is going to put the maps pretty much one on top of each other, and we can adjust our sliders to determine which one we want to see a little bit more. So as we slide this to the right, I have a whole lot more yellow. Granted, this is that rate map or that variety map that's only yellow. So if I had my applied rate map and I wanted to try to look at anything, we can adjust those sliders. Okay, difference map, that's going to show two different maps, and this we're typically looking at our harvest yield maps. So on this auto-populated, the initial one we're going to see is the corn average for 9 seasons compared to the difference for 1 season that we're isolating, and then our difference map on the right. So be another way to look at it. Are we gaining progress? Is there getting to be a larger difference maybe between our good spots and bad spots of the field? If we think about irrigated to dryland difference, how did this year's compare to maybe last year's from that standpoint? So if we wanted to pull in less years, we can pull at certain years out and only compare 1 year versus another if we wanted to for that different analysis. Click on the X to get back out of there. That got us out of Field Analyzer. Click back on my field. Get back into it under that single map layer. Other tools on the right, we have the full extent icon. We have our zoom in and zoom out. My mouse here, it's got a nice scroll wheel on it, so I like to use it to zoom in and out. We can change between our map view versus satellite imagery. Satellite imagery being the common one. If for some reason it got changed, you can come into here and switch it back to satellite. This little gear icon, what are we looking at? So within Field Analyzer, we just have the fields as the option on this one. Our selection tool, so like we did with that analysis, anything we want to select, if I wanted a polygon here and I only wanted to select a portion of this field, we will get the assessment based only off of that selected zone information. So from here, if I wanted to print this, I can go to Share Export, download that report, populate it as a PDF, and then print that information off. So if I only wanted to zoom in to what we had selected, I can download that report, it'll show up as a PDF, and I can print it off or email it, whichever. Okay, other things within Field Analyzer then, I get out of my selection tool. At the bottom, for every map layer, we will have our assessment or our analysis information. So what machine did the work, what was our variety, throughput, productivity type information, and then our field total metrics. So a common one here is being able to post-calibrate our yield data. So if we come into Edit, we can go to Area Harvested and Post-Calibration. And from here, we can post-calibrate any information. So if I knew how many acres were supposed to actually be associated to harvesting, the total yield in bushels, or if our wet weight, on updating wet weight based off of our recorded information from our scales on our green carts, things like that. So we can post-calibrate all of that in here, we can save it, and it'll actually update and correct then this map layers. So a lot of capabilities within Field Analyzer, a lot you can play with from an analysis standpoint. So great tool for finding those insights.